First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
So, as Diane said, I'm really grateful to be able to talk with you about an organization that is dear to me. I'll give you a little rundown of what you might have seen on the video, if you can imagine. The video starts out with close-ups of folks preparing sandwiches, no narration, just the chatter in the fellowship hall as people are volunteering. Then it shifts to some views of people on bicycles around the church and down the streets of Des Moines and elsewhere. It features some interaction between the volunteers and those on the street, asking how they're doing, have you had dinner tonight, handing them a sack of food or asking if they need other items, if they're interested in a sleeping mat, which many people are, batteries, personal items. Our CEO, Robbie Collier, talks about the history, and I'll tell you briefly about the history. It was about 11 years ago, our founder and former CEO, Joe Laszlo, had a bad bicycle accident. And during his recovery, he was at church and he had what he calls a noetic experience. He felt God was telling him that he was going to create a ministry to bring food to people on the street, and he's going to do it on bicycles. And he goes, oh my goodness. So he did some research, and there were organizations like this already. And so he started one day with 20 bottles of water and 20 homemade burritos that he made on his bike going down Ingersoll Avenue, and ran into people and rapidly distributed what he had. So from there we have grown to quite an organization with hundreds of volunteers, thousands on our mailing list, to something very special. The video closes and I begin with our motto, which is serving radical hospitality, one burrito at a time, with grace, love, respect, and hope. And the word hope actually was added just a couple of years ago, following a night of serving folk downtown. And I usually share in the leadership of the group that goes downtown. We call it the Red Route. Robbie says, why is it the Red Route? Because we stop at all the red lights. So I said to Robbie, I said, if I were living on the street, and this was a conversation we had, receiving food and a hug from a volunteer, it would give me hope that I could break the cycle of being homeless. So we thought about that. So that was added on to our already beautiful motto. So I learned about UBFM while attending the Bike Expo. Anybody ever been to the Bike Expo? Yeah. Okay, so you know what that's about. And this was in 2018. I began volunteering fairly regularly that summer. So combining a food ministry with bicycling sure seems like fun, doesn't it? And it is fun, but it really is more than that. As is always the case, during the fall of 2018, we switched to delivering in vehicles. It's much too cold, and our volunteers dropped because some people only want to go bicycling. So we switched to vehicles. Then I realized that we were able to reach people on bicycles that we couldn't reach in the vehicles, and particularly people who are living outdoors, whether it was riding down an alley downtown, or for the other group that works on or delivers on the south side of town, maneuvering the levees on their bicycles. So it really makes a difference on bicycles, and it makes me sad in that regard whenever winter comes. However, one of the advantages of going out in vehicles in the winter is that we can pile on whatever stuff we want. Blankets, coats, you name it. So it really matches what they need during that season, because we wouldn't be able to haul that stuff on bikes. It's just too much. Did you know that there are other UBFMs? For example, in Dubuque, there's a UBFM. In Tennessee, there's one in Nashville, there's one in Memphis, and there's also one in Colorado Springs and in St. Louis, Missouri. Capitol Hill Lutheran Church is our host organization. We rent space and store our inventory of food and clothing and other personal items. That's where volunteers meet every Thursday evening, every week, year-round, to serve. We're there to serve on Thanksgiving, which is usually on Thursday, as well as Christmas and New Year's, if that should fall on Thursday. And it's amazing how many volunteers we actually bring in during the holidays. We'll have entire families come. Maybe one of the family members has been volunteering, so they have their children from out of town join them. Maybe they'll just come for that one time and not again, but surprisingly we do get quite a few families during the holidays. So every week we have to order food supplies. So some of that comes from Sam's Club, but every month Martin Brothers makes delivery to the church with similar items. Folks drop off in-kind donations to the church on Thursday evening, or Thursday afternoon and evening, as we prepare to go out in the streets. So if you're interested in that kind of help, get to the church around 4:30, 5 o'clock, drop off your in-kind donations, whether they're coats or blankets or batteries. That's the time to do it. It's always on Thursday. Most of our financial support comes from organizations, churches, clubs, and of course, many individuals. We also receive a few grants. Now, during COVID, when everything was shut down, including our churches, we tried to sustain our ministry. At one point, however, because of donations dropping, we had less than $4,000 in the bank. And mind you, it costs us at the time, about $40,000 to $45,000 a year to sustain the ministry. So it seemed like we were destined to close down. So we made an urgent request to our friends in the community for support, and boy, did they come through. And we never shut down. Continued, maybe in a smaller form. For a while, we were, instead of making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, we were buying the so-called Uncrustables. I don't know if any of you know what those are, at the store, and then giving those out. So now we're on solid standing in Des Moines area and have a steady flow of financial support, fortunately. Each week, 45 to 60 volunteers show up to prepare sandwiches, deliver food to the streets, and clean up our mess in Fellowship Hall. And it gets kind of messy. We also get help to distribute supplies to route staging areas, which are set up on round tables in Fellowship Hall, each with a flag with a color denoting the color of that route. So it's kind of organized chaos. It's noisy, it's crazy, but it's full of love. We also get help to distribute supplies from folks and cook burrito filling, sort out in-kind donations dropped off. We even have one fella, Mark, who keeps an eye on the bicycles, which are parked on the north side of the church, so we don't get e-bikes stolen, and that has happened. We have had bikes stolen there until the volunteers go out on the street. And we have 8 distinct routes through Des Moines, 2 of which are year-round car routes that travel. One of them travels as far north as 3580 at East 14th, and another route travels down to Army Post Road. But from April to October, the other 6 routes usually go out on bikes in groups anywhere from 4 to 9 volunteers. Some nights it's stormy, and some nights they say, I'm not going out. Or it's coming down, raining cats and dogs, and some people don't want to go out. But actually, we have a group of about 3 or 4 very hardy individuals that are used to bicycling in the winter that go out year-round on their bikes. I don't know how they do it, even when it's down to 10 degrees. So during the colder months, of course, most of the routes go out on vehicles. Now, the number of people we serve really varies depending on the season, as you might suspect. There may be as few as 200 people a week during the winter, but as many as 600 or more a week during the summer. We've seen a steady increase in folks serving over the past few years. For example, in the first week of 2022, we served 330 folk. And just a few weeks ago, the same week, we served 624. Last week, we almost hit 700, and we've never served that many before. One individual route, which used to serve about 70 or 80, maybe 100, this past week served over 200. The need is out there, and hopefully we're there for them that one day, one night a week. So I'd like to share a couple of stories about the neighbors we serve. I met a gentleman at the Central Library on our downtown route a week ago. He was pushing his possessions on a modified shopping cart, piled up to here. It's huge contraption, with baskets and luggage and you name it. He wanted to tell his story, part of his story, which began with the experience of dumpster diving with his mom when he was a school-age kid. Yeah, that was my reaction. It's real. He hated doing that, he said. And then when his mom died decades later, he took over her possessions accumulated in her apartment. But the owner of the building gave notice to all the tenants that he was planning to sell the building. They need to clear out in 2 weeks. But before the deadline, he was served an immediate vacate notice from the police, who proceeded to dispose of all the belongings in the apartment into a nearby dumpster. So he was distraught. But he surprised himself by beginning to retrieve some of her and his belongings from the dumpster. So here he was, repeating his mom's behavior of dumpster diving. One winter, I met a young man bedded down for the night on a cement slab in an alley between 6th and 5th Avenue. He said, "I really appreciate all the food and other things that you gave me today. But what I really appreciate is that you see me as a human being. That's the most important lesson I've learned from being a volunteer with UBFM over these 7 years." Please join me in prayer. Holy One, you have given us eyes to see, arms to embrace, and hearts to care. Guide us to serve others in ways that match our skills and passions. Bless the servers and those served, no matter where they are on life's journey, and lift us up during times of frustration and